Okay, we're just a couple minutes after the top of the hour, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Training Thursday with Stoplight Customer Success Team. My name is Dan, and along with my colleague Amy, we will be your hosts for today's training session. So just a few quick comments about the logistics of this webinar. Be sure to post your questions in the Zoom webinar Q&A window. Stoplight will have a couple of people monitoring and answering questions as they're asked. So the purpose of today's training session is to review some of the key Stoplight concepts and hierarchies and walk through an administrative perspective of the Stoplight user interfaces. I'll be starting our session today with a quick overview of how the Stoplight platform can assist you and your organization with your API development needs, and then I'll review a few key concepts and hierarchies within the platform. From there, I will introduce Amy, who will take us on a tour of the Stoplight Workspace user interface and review all of the administrative features and settings within the workspace. She will also show us a quick peek of the Stoplight Studio user interface. So before we get started, let's quickly review the key features of Stoplight that can help you and your organization enhance your API development processes. Stoplight's API design features allow you to develop quality APIs with a collaborative approach to an API-first design philosophy. Create and prototype your APIs using our intuitive visual editor for open API specifications. You can create your APIs in line with industry best practices. With Stoplight's API mocking features, you can instantly create a mock version of your API based on your open API specification. This allows you to visualize and get feedback on your API designs before spending time on back-end services development. API mocking allows your front-end client application developers and back-end services development teams to develop their projects in parallel. With Stoplight's API documentation features, you can provide a top-notch developer experience for internal and external consumers automatically generated from your open API files. You can help internal and external users discover, learn, and integrate with your API quickly by publishing interactive API documentation, tutorials, and code samples that are always up to date. Stoplight's governance features allow you to govern your APIs at scale with always in-sync central repository of API designs, schemas, and API documentation. You can easily share and enforce standards across your API designs to provide consistency, reusability, and better governance throughout your API program. You can also utilize Stoplight's newly available public style guides to leverage sets of curated API design rules from top companies and security and design themes. Before we get into the tour of the Stoplight user interfaces, let's discuss a few key concepts and hierarchies that will help you better understand Stoplight's user interface. One of the really important concepts to understand from an administrative perspective within Stoplight is the concept of workspace versus group and project roles. Workspace roles are focused on access for managing settings and changes at the workspace level. A workspace role can determine who can make changes to the global workspace settings, who can create and manage sharing and member settings for all new and existing projects, who can create and manage default style guides for governance of your API designs, and who can access and view projects within a workspace. Group and project roles are focused on access for managing settings and changes at an individual group or project level. Project and group roles determine who can make changes and manage settings at an individual group and project level, who can manage member settings at that individual group and project level, and who can access and view individual projects within the Stoplight platform. I'm not going to dive too deep into the specific descriptions and permissions for each one of the workspace and group and project roles at this time, but I'd like to highly recommend that you become familiar with these roles by visiting our documentation pages about them. Our documentation pages cover the role descriptions and permission details, which will help you select an appropriate role for users in your workspace. Another of the really important concepts to understand from an administrative perspective within Stoplight is the Stoplight hierarchy and the two main user interfaces that you will encounter within Stoplight. At the highest level, you have your Stoplight workspace. Within your workspace, you will have one or many API and style guide projects, which can optionally be organized within groups. Both groups and projects can be designated as public or internal. Internal projects and associated documentation will not be visible to non-logged in users, whereas public projects are visible to the general public. Groups designated as internal groups can only contain internal projects, but public groups can contain both public and internal projects. All of the global settings for your workspace, as well as the creation and management of high-level project settings, are performed within the Stoplight workspace user interface. As you drill into the scope of creating and editing individual API and style guide project assets, you will transition from the Stoplight workspace UI to the Stoplight Studio UI. Your technical team and API design architects will likely be spending the majority of their time within the Stoplight Studio UI. Within the scope of a single project, in the Stoplight Studio, you may have one or many API designs, open API specifications, one or many API models, and one or many API documentation articles. And within a style guide project, you'll have the ability to manage rules and functions for your style guide project. When you transition between your individual Stoplight projects, you will navigate back to the workspace UI and then back into the Studio UI within the scope of each project that you are editing. So you're going to move back and forth between, again, workspace UI and Studio UI based on whether you're making changes at a global level or making changes at an individual project level. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague, Amy, who will be conducting a tour of Stoplight from an administrative perspective. Take it away, Amy.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I'd like to take the next few minutes and just walk through some of our administrative tools within our workspace. I'd like to start by looking at what your workspace looks like to someone who is not yet authenticated. So as Dan mentioned earlier in some of our key concepts, we have the ability to have public or internal APIs. So here you can see anything that is marked as a public API for someone who is not yet logged in. As you can see, we have not authenticated yet. They'll be able to see and access those public API projects. So they have the ability to come in, read your landing page information, as well as delve into your API projects for those that are public. Now, let's look at how we log in. Out of the box, there are 4 default options for authenticating users into your workspace. These are configurable and customizable by you, so we'll look at how you can do that. But these are what the options look like as you first begin. So now let's look at, once we authenticate into our workspace, what that looks like. So here you can see I have now authenticated into my workspace. I'm in. Some information I want to make sure that you're aware of is I am logged into this workspace as an owner. So based on my workspace role, I have full rights to everything. If you are following along in your own workspace, which I highly encourage, you may see that there are some things that you don't have access to that I do. That's totally fine. That is just a workspace role rights difference. So you'll see everything that I see here, but you may not see everything within your own workspace. So let's get started. The first thing we notice once we're logged in is that we have the ability to access our landing page. And this is the same landing page that we see whether we're authenticated in or not. You have the ability to customize that, and we'll see how we can do that in the settings section. But this is a great tool to use if you're brand new to Stoplight. There's a lot of great information in here you can scroll down and look at, but this is also a great tool for you to use for people visiting or entering your workspace, talking about what APIs are working on, what's been released, any new versions, that sort of thing. So a great tool to be able to communicate to people right from your landing page. So today there's 3 different areas that we're going to talk about. We're going to start with our billing tabs along the top here. Then we'll move over to our quick access toolbar on the left. And we'll wrap up by looking at our flyout menu in the bottom left-hand corner. So let's move over into our projects tab along our administrative toolbar. This is going to show a list of all of the current projects that we have within our workspace. If you have a large number of projects, you may find that this is a very long list. You do have the ability to sort these lists based on the headers that you see here. You can also filter based on the status or the visibility of each project. Or if you have a long list, but you know the name of your project, you can search for that right here. You can see here we have 3 groups and 1 standalone project. Within the groups, you can see some information, but if we select a group name, on the right-hand side, it's going to open up information about that group. So we'll see how many projects are associated, how many members are within the group. If we click on the members tab, we have the ability to see the visibility as well as the group role. So as I mentioned earlier, within this workspace, I am an owner, but in this group, I am an editor. So we have the ability to set those rights differently based on the needs of the workspace and the project and the group. We also have the ability, if you have the rights, to click on the settings tab. And here you can update the name of a group if you need to. You can add a description, adjust the visibility as you need to. If you've completed a project and would like to make that public, you can do that. Have a little fun with the avatar. You can adjust your color and icons there. And then again, if you have the rights, you do have the ability to delete a group right from here. Now, if we click on a project, we see the same right-hand information, a little adjusted because it's specific to that project. So here we'll see within the project what's associated with it, how many endpoints, APIs, models, and articles. From here, we can click on the edit version, and that will take us directly into our studio so that we can begin editing or working on making some adjustments to that API within the studio. We can go directly to our documentation and read up or make adjustments to that. And then with permissions, you have the ability to go into the project settings where you can update the name, add a tagline, again, update any icons, as well as see some version history if there's some out there, and delete the project as needed. Now, the other thing you'll notice is we have the ability to multi-select. When we multi-select, we have a couple more options that will pop up. One is the ability to move. So we've talked about how we see our projects and our groups here. And if we want to create a new group, we can create that group really quickly by clicking on our new group button, and then we can move multiple items into that group if we would like to. We also have the ability to delete multiple items right from here. Now, if you're brand new to your workspace and you're trying to think about how would we want to set up groups versus projects, there's a couple questions you can ask yourself. You can start by asking, who's going to own or administer the projects? And maybe you want to group those together by who the owner or the team that might be working on them is. Will these API projects be visible or internal only? That's another great way that you can start to group some of your projects together. The other thing to consider is within a project, do you only want one API, or might you have API projects that have multiple APIs in separate directories for each? So just a couple things to begin to think about as you start to create your projects and group them together. Just some ideas to better manage those in the long run. So now let's take a look at our members tab. This is where we have the ability to invite members and set their default workspace role. So here we can see I am an owner of the workspace. You have the ability, again, to sort by the header of each column. So if you have a long list of members, you can sort that way. Based on your rights, you can delete a member right from here if you need to. Also, you'll notice we have auto select again, and that will open up a couple more objects up here. One is we can change the role. So if we find a number of our members are makers, for example, and maybe we want to change those down to viewers, we can multi-select those roles and then change their role right from here. Click on the drop-down of what role you'd like to make them, select that and click change, and that will update their role. You also have the ability to delete multiple members if you need to do that. Another functionality you can see if you have multiple members that are pending, you can come in, auto select those pending and either approve or deny those requests in bulk. So saving you a little bit of time there. Of course, you can invite new members right from your members tab as well. Click on that, type in a name or email address, select their default workspace role with a nice little definition next to each of those, and then send an invite, and that will email that member to join your workspace. All right, now let's look at our settings tab. This is really the first tab that you'll come to if you're brand new to your workspace, because this is where you're going to do all of your setup and configuration. You can adjust the look and feel of your workspace a little bit. So this is really where you'll start when you're brand new to your workspace. But let's go through what we've got here. So first, we've got our display name. The display name will show in two places. One will be in your browser tab at the top here. And if you don't have a logo like I do, you would also see your display name listed right here. So if you'd like to change that display name, you can click on it, type in what you'd like, click save, and that would update those two locations. You have a workspace identifier. So if you have elements, you are able to associate your elements to your workspace using that identifier. You also have approved email domains. By setting up an approved email domain, you allow for easy engagement and less management effort, as any user within that email domain will be auto-approved. This could lead to less oversight of who's occupying seats within your workspace, but it does save you a lot of time on management. So here, if you want to add, as you can see, we've got stoplight.io as an approved email domain, but you just come in, add your email domain, select the role that you would like, the default workspace role that you would like for anyone coming in, and then save that, and that will add to your list here. Moving down to the look and feel, this is where you really can set up your branding. So based on what plan you have, you may have the ability to remove the Stoplight branding. You will see that again in your browser tab, and also in the very bottom left-hand corner of your workspace, you'll see powered by Stoplight. If we turn that off, it will disappear from those two locations. We can turn it back on and it will come back. You can adjust your theme. So here I am using the dark theme, but if you want to adjust that to one of our preset themes like sky, that will change our colors. Or you can work with your own marketing team and set your default colors here, make that change and save it. And then that's what you would see in your workspace. You have the ability to add a favicon, which you'll see up in your browser tab. So if you'd like to have an icon up there, you can do that. You can also add a logo like we have added, and that would show up in the upper left-hand corner of your workspace. And of course, the landing page, which we've talked about. So when you click on this, you have the ability using Markdown to write whatever you'd like to have listed on your landing page. Again, this is viewable by both your authenticated users and the public in general. So there's lots of great information you can put out here. You have the ability to preview it before you save it and publish it out. If you don't necessarily want to start from scratch, you can use the default template, which is exactly what we see when we logged in. So here you can see the preview of that, but you could come in, make any changes that you would want, preview that, and then save it. And that would set your new landing page for people visiting your site. All right, sliding down to our custom domains. This section will only apply if you do set up a custom domain, but let's look at what we've got here. So if you have a friendly URL that you'd like to use, for example, api.mycompanyname.com. If that is your CNAME, you can put that in here, and then users will be able to access your domain or your workspace from either that friendly domain or the existing domain that you have. If you have a Google Tag Manager ID, then when your workspace is loaded from your custom domain, your Google Tag Manager will be included with your configured marketing tags. So you have the ability to add your Google Tag Manager license there, and that will set that up for you. Redirects will allow you to move your documentation without breaking links, so you have access to that. You can hide the sign-in button if you would like to from your custom domain. And if you need translation, you can use localization here. This is an integration that requires a subscription to a third party named Localize. But once you've got your project key, you can add that here and then do some customization with localization within your workspace. The next thing we'll look at is integrations. Now, if you remember when I first started talking, we looked at the options for signing in. And if you remember, we had the Bitbucket Cloud, email, GitHub, and GitLab. So this is where that is configured. So if you don't want to allow users to authenticate, you can click on that, disable that, and now this would no longer be an option for users to be able to authenticate into your workspace. So you can set up however you would like them from an organizational standpoint to be able to authenticate in. You set that up here. This is also where you would come to set up your Git repository. So if you had a GitHub, you could come in either using your customized integration settings or the default, add your GitHub information, and that would allow you to your workspace to connect to your Git repository. And those are set up here. And the final thing we have is the ability to remove a workspace. You don't want to do this because once you do remove your workspace, there is no going back, but just so you can see what it looks like, because if you're like me and you see something in red that says danger zone, you always want to click on it. But this is what it looks like. It's not easy to remove it. You have to type in your whole workspace name, and you'll notice the remove button does not highlight until that workspace name is entered. So that's where that is located. Now, I know we talked about a lot in here. And some of this, especially if you're brand new to Stoplight, maybe you want to look at a custom domain, but not right now. Maybe that's a few months down the road. That's totally fine. Any one of these flyout menus you can click on, and you'll see there's a learn more option in the upper right-hand corner. So if you want more information or to see how that might work for you, you can come into our documentation library, see the information. Our documentation team has done a great job of providing as much information as possible, including some troubleshooting tips where necessary to help make sure that you can use that functionality as smoothly as possible. So you can always come back in and click on the Learn More option there. All right, moving from settings over to governance. This is where we have the ability to set our default style guides. So a couple of weeks ago, you may have remembered, and Dan mentioned that we have new public style guides that are available. This is where you would see those. So you have the ability to enable or disable a style guide that you may or may not want to use. By clicking on the preview button, you'll go back to our documentation library and view information about what is enforced within that style guide. If you have created your own workspace style guides, those are listed here as well, and you can enable or disable them as you see fit. You also have the ability, if you so choose, to allow admins and editors to disable the default style guides. So if you want to give them some free reign, you have the ability to do that. It is turned off by default, so everyone will have to follow the style guides that you select for your workspace. Moving over to Activity tab. Consider this your workspace audit log. So this is where you would come to find changes that may have happened within your workspace. You can click on the drop down, see the different types of changes are here, but they'll be listed date, time, order, and you can see that information here. Under automation, I do not have a Git repository set up with my workspace at this time, but if you did, this is where you would see the webhook events and other logs that would help you do some debugging if you were having issues with your Git repository. So that's where you would see those kind of logs would be listed under automation. And finally, we have our billing tab. For those who have access to this, it's just a snapshot of what your plan is, how many seats you've got, how many seats are occupied, billing information, and that sort of thing. So that kind of wraps up what is covered in our admin toolbar along the top here. Dan, are there any questions that we want to call out from that?
Yeah, we do have one question, Amy, not specific to the material that you covered, but the question is, good morning, we're using MuleSoft to catalog our API. Could Stoplight pull API catalog and endpoint information directly from MuleSoft? The answer is, if you're using MuleSoft within MuleSoft, if you're using the Open API specification for cataloging your API, Stoplight wouldn't be able to pull directly from MuleSoft, but if you were to store those in your code repo, Stoplight could import those from your code repo and bring them into your Stoplight workspace.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. All right, so now we'll look at our quick access toolbar on the left-hand side here. We're going to start in the upper left-hand corner with our logo. I have the logo. If you don't have a logo, you would see your workspace name listed here. One thing to note that you've got a home button listed on your admin toolbar. You have a home button in your quick access toolbar. And if you click on your logo or your name, any one of those three will take you back to your landing page. So you can always start fresh from your landing page by clicking on either one of those three items. Next to that, we've got the plus button. This is the same button we see in our projects tab to create a new project. So here you can see we can create or import an API or a style guide. We can create a blank project. We can import from an open API. We can pull from our Git repository. We just need to give the project a name, set the visibility, and then if we want to associate it with a group, we can do that and then create our project. Simple as that to create a new project right from our quick access toolbar. Again, that is the same functionality that we see in projects when we click on new project. Below that, we've got our search feature. This will allow you to search your workspace. So if you're looking for something specific and maybe you don't have it pinned to your quick access toolbar here, you can come in here and search. And that will pull up anything that matches that search request. The home button we've already talked about. The next we've got here is the Explore. This is a great tool. If you just kind of want to see what's in your workspace, you have the ability to click on that, delve into different items, starting with as high as just the welcome landing page that you have set up for that project, all the way down into specific calls within that API, do some basic mocking, see any dependencies or changes that may have happened. Read the documentation. So it's a great tool to be able to browse and learn more about an API or a project that's being worked on without having to go over to your studio and come back. So it's a really great tool to be able to see what's going on within your workspace and learn more about each one of those API projects. So next we have our quick access toolbar. Now, one thing that I forgot to show you under projects, we have the ability to pin different projects or unpin them. So if I unpin something under projects, you'll see it will disappear from my quick access toolbar, pin it back again, and it comes back. This is a great tool to allow different members of your workspace to kind of customize what is their quick access. What are they working on right now? What do they want one-click access to? They can come into projects, select that, and then set up their own quick access bar here on the left-hand side so that they have easy access to the things that they might be working on. So if we select an API from there, we should see the information about that tool or about that API. Let me choose a different one. That one's not populating right now. There we go. All right, so here we'll see our landing page information about that API, anything that you would want to share, and then you can drill down into the API itself, seeing more about what might be going on within that API. You have the ability from here to invite someone to your API project. So again, very simply, instead of having to go back up into your project and invite them from there, you can do it right from here. You also, based on rights, have the ability to update the settings or see any versions that may be associated with this project. And then the edit button will take you over into the workspace. So this is what Dan mentioned. So far, we've spent our whole time in our workspace, and now we've come over to our studio where we would really spend the bulk of our time working and building our different API projects. So really quickly, we'll just look at some functionality that we have here. We won't spend a lot of time in our studio user interface here. That will be for an upcoming training that we'll be doing. So you'll be able to come back and learn more about what all takes place within the studio. But for now, we've got our APIs, any associated docs or files, and any associated style guides would be listed here. To add something, you can click on the blue plus button, and here you have the ability to add a new directory, a new API, anything that you might want to add to this project. You also, when you are developing, here's where you have the ability to switch from your code to your form view and also preview. And if you do have an associated style guide, you would see your messages listed here to allow you to clean that up as you're working so that you've got some really great consistency across your APIs. So again, that is just scratching the surface of what you can do in Studio, but we'll have more information on that in a future training. So now if we head back home, talking about all of our quick access items are listed there. The last thing we've got is invite to workspace. So this is the same functionality that we have if we're in the members tab and click on invite member. But again, we can do it right from our quick access bar, type in a name or an email address, select their default workspace role is what you would choose here, and then send the invite, and that will send an email to invite that person or people to your workspace group. Any questions about the quick access toolbar? All right.
No new questions, Amy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. And we'll wrap up with our flyout menu down here in the bottom left-hand corner. So first thing we've got is our account settings. Here you can come in, update your name, select a gravatar if you'd like. You can associate a second email address with your workspace, and you have the ability to sign up for or turn off receiving the Stoplight Daily Digest, which is just a summary email of changes that have taken place within your workspace. You can also update your password. And if you do have any repositories connected, you would see those listed here. Next to that, we've got our product docs. We saw how we can access product documentation from our settings tab, but if you're looking for something outside of the settings tab or just have a more general question, you can always click on that, come right in here and search. And that will take you right to the documentation that you're looking for, allow you to work through that. Great documentation out here. Again, our team has done a great job of making sure that you've got the information right at your fingertips, easy to search for, so you can do that right from your workspace as well. You also have access to the Stoplight blog from here, and this is a great place to go to learn about API first design, as well as tips and tricks on Stoplight. So if we click on that, that will take us out to our API blog, and here you can see all the different postings that we've had recently, learn more about those, filter for what you might be looking for. But again, a great tool to learn more and interact with other Stoplighters. Below that, we've got the help button that will take you out to the knowledge base. So if you've gone through the product docs and maybe you're looking for a specific error or something like that, the help button is another great place to come that will take you into the knowledge base. Some additional tips and tricks when you're trying to troubleshoot items will be found in there. And then if you do have a paid subscription, you'll have access to the Stoplight support team. By clicking on that, you'll log in, and then you have the ability to open a support case with our super excellent support team, and they'll help solve the problems that you might be facing or help point you in the right direction. So you can contact support right from there. And the last option we have is the roadmap. This allows you to come out and see items that have launched recently, things that might be planned. You have the ability to review what other people have suggested and vote those up. And you can submit an idea of your own. So it's a great way to interact with our product teams and learn more about what's going on and how changes that might be coming to our Stoplight workspaces. So if there's no other questions, we have covered all of the main administrative tools and the basic functionality within your workspace. And I will turn it back over to Dan to wrap us up.
Yeah, we've got just one question that came in, Amy. Well, we've got a handful of questions that are being answered in the question and answer panel. So, you know, if you've got questions that you might have that might be the same, or you'd like to post additional questions, please use our question and answer panel to post those questions. One question that was a fantastic question was related to the search function in the quick access toolbar. The question is, if I search for a specific word, does the search cover the full content of the pages or just the project and article titles? So great question. The search actually covers the full content of the pages, not just the article title. So that search is indexed based on what you put in, you know, the actual content of the projects themselves. So you can use the search feature to find projects that might contain specific elements that you're looking for within your API projects.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you very much, Amy, for that tour. And before we wrap up, I'd like to quickly review the Stoplight subscription plan options. So you can leverage a selection of software as a service subscription options, fully hosted by Stoplight for your API design, mocking, documentation, and governance building blocks. Stoplight's free plan allows you to begin exploring Stoplight's design-first features and allows you to collaborate with up to 3 users on 2 projects within your workspace. Moving up to Stoplight's starter subscription plan, your subscription includes 5 users who can collaborate on up to 50 projects, and it unlocks the approved email domain and custom workspace domain features within your workspace. And of course, you can purchase individual additional user licenses as needed. By leveling up to Stoplight's professional subscription plan, your subscription includes 10 users and up to 100 projects. And again, you can purchase additional individual user licenses as needed. With Stoplight Professional, you gain the ability to invite external guests to your Stoplight projects so that they can view your internal API design specifications and API documentation articles from behind an authenticated session. Stoplight Professional also unlocks additional single sign-on options such as SAML and LDAP. And it also unlocks additional Git provider options such as Azure DevOps Server, Bitbucket Server, as well as custom workspace domain features within your workspace, which will allow you to use your own host name for your Stoplight hosted API designs and documents. Lastly, with Stoplight's enterprise subscription plan, your subscription includes 25 users, unlimited projects, and unlimited external guests. And once again, you can purchase additional individual user licenses as needed. With a Stoplight Enterprise subscription, you gain the ability to access volume license discounts, additional discount invoicing flexibility, and custom payment terms. You will also have enhanced onboarding and training engagements with our customer success team and an enhanced priority for your support cases. And that wraps up our content, our training content for today. So I'm gonna leave the webinar open for just another few minutes to be able to answer some of the open questions that may come in. But for those of you that don't have any additional questions, we're going to be finishing up here in a moment. And one thing I do want to mention is be sure to mark your calendar. So our next training Thursday is September 8th. This is our very first one that we just did today, focused on administrative training, and we're targeting a more technical training, which delves deeper into the Stoplight Studio UI for our September 8th training session.